we have a virgin. Another sacrificial virgin. Now, Jeff Watkins has come here with a witness, courageous soul that he is, and sat right in front, and has been an extraordinary audience member. I'm looking forward to hearing you recite, but I want to say something before you do. I want you to come back, and come back, and come back, because I guarantee it. You have to leave your email address so I can send you this. When you see this, you're going to go, oh! But next time, I assure you, you're going to be better. And it's very easy to get your thing and look at it, because I'll mail it out to you. And that's the idea, to get better and educate us. Because when you trip and you correct that moment, we go intuitively, yeah. You know, I'm not an evangelist, but after all my horrors in my youth, and my insecurities, and the 2 times I almost killed myself, not so much out of anger, but more out of stillness. Is that all there is? This is it? And thank God my parents were calling me every 15 minutes and demonstrating love and all this. And there's a very funny story that goes with that. But be that as it may, it happens to all of us. It's not unique. Just trust in yourself and your consciousness and grow it and grow it and grow it. Okay. Sir, Jeff Watkins.
All right, well, let's see if I can do this. I have to admit, this is the first time that I've ever read a poem in public. This is the first time that I've ever been to a public poetry reading. The only people who have heard my poetry are my 2 kids and the lovely lady that has graced me with her presence this evening. My kids thought I was great, you know. I wrote my first poem in 2006. And coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, that was probably when I started, as Hayden pointed out, trying to find my voice, right? Which is a great metaphor. I should point out that I am a professor of linguistics at West Point.
Uh-oh, we better leave. Yeah.
So if I go on too long, you guys can just tell me. My cadets tell me that all the time. That's when I started trying to find my voice, or trying to find out who I was, or probably more accurately, who I wasn't. I started realizing who I wasn't. And poetry really helped me with that. Interestingly enough, and this will be probably something I haven't heard any, well, I've heard some haiku here, but not a lot of form poetry here tonight. I prefer to write form poetry. And I think that reflects my desire, my search for structure. And maybe that's why I became a professor of linguistics, who knows. But I tell my cadets that language is interesting, and the use of metaphor is so interesting as part of our language. We use it anytime we can't explain something, we try to use a metaphor, right? And my son came home from high school, he lived in Cornwall, and he started talking about the electron cloud. And I'm like, the electron cloud? What's that? He said, well, you know, the electrons, they go around the nucleus. Well, when I was in school, it was the electrons are in orbit. So it's interesting how we change our metaphors over time. But I've been on a search for structure, and so I've been going down a path of some form poetry. And I brought with me tonight 2 sonnets, and both of which I also speak Russian. I have had a lot of experience abroad. I teach Russian at West Point sometimes when they need me. And so I've written a lot of Shakespearean sonnets and some Pushkin sonnets as well. And I have a third poem which kind of shows a little bit of growth, I think, along the way. But I really like the sonic because it is a rhetorical device, right? It is not just, the structure of it is a challenge, and I appreciate the challenge of trying to find some self-expression within that form with the specific meter and the specific rhyme. But it's also a kind of a speech, right? You have you introduce a topic and then you develop it, and then you kind of narrow it down until you reach your final concluding thought. So I've written about 15 sonnets over the last few years, and this one is called The Gravity of Realization. When in the end of days we are no more, and day is turned into eternal night, when Father-Son has ceased his fiery roar, extinguishing his life-endowing light, when orbits fail and worlds leave paths of old, no longer trapped in timeless adoration, as moons rebel and flee in glee untold, the galaxy relaxes its formation. And yet how sad to lose this awed alignment that set in motion birth of life on earth. And now that man has shed the earth's confinement, who then will mourn the galaxy's rebirth? Who then will tell the tale of how we cried, of how we lived and loved, rejoiced and died? That was written in about 2008. I think the next one was written in about 2009. A long period of self-discovery, as Lewis calls it. This is also a kind of another extreme of my condition during that period of time. This one is called Leviathans of Madness. Reality is like a thought that haunts and plagues my mind, just always out of reach. Surreal yet near, the cold seductress taunts, precociously alluring in her speech. With zealous fervor prodding me along, I stumble, seeking clarity and light. The distant notes of sanity's sweet song hum faintly like a ghost just out of sight. Despair sets in as once again I see my futile flight succumb to darkened void. Besieged no more by flights of fantasy, eclipsed by fate, I stand a man destroyed. Leviathans of madness rape my mind. Subdued I yield, to lunacy resigned. The last one I wrote as part of an online contest. And the only guidance we received as part of the contest is the quote by Dante, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." And this one is called Hopelessly. And I think this is another interesting aspect of self-discovery is when you meet someone special in your life. And those of us who seek structure suddenly discover that that's not so easy to keep after emphasis. Yeah. So this one's titled Hopelessly. Precisely ordered was my life, a metered rhythmic song. Each day I sought a little joy and followed life along. Alone I wandered through my days, not straying from my course, for peace and order were my hope, my banners all in force. But then one day I met her, and things began to change. She chilled me, thrilled me, filled me, with feelings novel, strange. Lost my patterns were, my order laid to waste. Rational thought departed, my rhythm displaced. I stood at the edge of a precipice, looking down into a pit where hopelessness became hopelessly in love. Now she is my order, she is my rhythm, haunting me, taunting me, her dark eyes call me, enthrall me. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. My order abandoned, I'm lost in her hopelessly.